Hey guys, no, we're not doing another chapter, but I got a phone call from inside my house. My kid was asking me to come help him with some work, so I had to pause the video. So it wouldn't let me start it back up. So we're not going to make a new one. We're just going to add on to this one. All right, here we go. Chapter 3, The Lemonade Wars. So we had just read that the mom was a public relations consultant. She has made a book for one of her clients called 10 Bright Ideas to Lighten Up Your Sales. So here we go. And Evan was just like his mom. He was good at talking to people, even grown-ups. It was easy for him. So he kept the conversation flowing along with the lemonade. People hung around. Most of them even bought a second cup before they left. Evan was so busy, he did not even notice Jessie was flying out of the garage on her bike and riding down the street. Good riddance, he thought. But at the same time, he was wondering, where was she going? During a lull in business, Evan walked all around the stand, picking up the discarded plastic cups. Scott sat in his chair, jingling the coins. Man, we're going to be so rich, said Scott. I bet we've made $5 already. I bet we've made 10. How much do you think we've made? Evan shrugged. He looked at the stack of unused cups and he counted the rim. 14. They'd sold 14 cups so far, and each cup of lemonade was 50 cents. Evan heard Mrs. Dufresne's voice in his ear. Miss Dufresne had been his third grade teacher, and she'd done everything she could to help Evan with his math. If one cup sells for 50 cents, you sell 14 cups of lemonade, how much money would you make? Word problems. Oh! Evan really hated word problems, and this one was impossible anyway. He was pretty sure he had the right equation. 14 times 50 equals what? But how was he supposed to solve that? What was that double digit of math? The multiplication? There was no way he could do a problem like that. And besides, some of those 14 people had bought refills, but used the same cup. How many had done that? Evan didn't know. Still, he knew they'd made pretty good amount of money. That estimation was close enough for him. How much do you think we could make if we sold it all? Asked Scott. I don't know, said Evan. Maybe $20? That sounds high, even to him, but Evan was an optimist. An optimist is someone who likes to think really positive, someone who sees the good in everything. I like optimist people. Do you really think we could go that high? Both boys looked in the cooler. 3 pitchers were empty. They only had half a pitcher left. They were pouring the cups too full, said Scott. You should pour less in each one. You're the one who bought the huge plastic cups that could fit a gallon in one piece of those, said Evan. Besides, I wasn't going to be chintzy. Chintzy means cheap. He didn't want to be cheap. He wanted to give people what they were asking for. They were paying a whole half of a buck for it. They deserved a full cup. And anyway, we can just go home and make more. My mom has cans of lemonade in the freezer. So go home and make some more, said Scott. Oh, mighty, your majesty. Yes, I will, your highness. Why don't you do it now? 'Cause I'm chillin', said Scott, leaning back in his chair with a silly grin on his face. Evan knew he was just joking, but this was exactly the reason why he didn't like Scott. He was always thinking of himself, always looking for some way to come up on top. If they were playing knockout, Scott always came up with new rules to help him win. If they were doing an assignment together, Scott always figured out a way to divide it so he had less work to do. The kid was a weasel. A weasel? It's kind of a little ground animal. Really kind of cute. No two ways about it. But everyone else was out of town. Evan didn't want to spend the day alone. And Jesse was on his list. As Mom called it, when the dog did something it wasn't supposed to, the list. Evan might never play with Jesse again. Evan crossed the street and went to his house. He was surprised to find that there were no more cans of lemonade in the freezer. Wow, there had been so many this morning. Luckily, there was a can of grape juice in the freezer and a bottle of ginger ale in the fridge. It'll work, he thought. People just want a cold drink. They don't really care if it's lemonade. He mixed up the grape juice at the sink. The fruit flies were more out of control than ever, thanks to the lemonade the boys had dribbled on the counter. Evan swatted at a couple, but most of them drifted out of his reach and settled on the fruit bowl. He wished his mother believed in chemical warfare, but Miss Ch3b, it was all natural or nothing. Usually it was nothing. When Evan went back outside to the lemonade stand, he noticed that the last pitcher was turned upside down on the cooler. "Ah, come on, Scott," he said. "What? It was hot. And you said you could make some more." "Well, we didn't have as much in the house as I thought. I've got grape juice and ginger ale." "I hate ginger ale," Scott said. "I wouldn't give you a penny for it." It turned out a lot of people felt the same way. Business was difficulty. It was definitely slower. The day got hotter, the sun beat down on the two of them ferociously, and it was so easy to imagine the sidewalk cracking open and swallowing them whole. Fanning himself, Evan asked, "How much money do you really think we could make?" "I don't know," said Scott, pushing his baseball cap down over his eyes. "I mean, on a hot day like this," Evan sighed. "Well, what about tomorrow? If we sold 8 pitchers of lemonade, what do you think we'd make?" 8 pitchers? I don't know. Scott shook his head. His baseball cap faced waggedly backwards and forth. "Too hot for math. It's summer." Evan pulled the red pen out of his pocket and started to write on the palm of his hand. 8 times 50? Divided by 2? Oh, that didn't seem right. Jessie would know. She'd do the math in a second. Evan capped the pen, jammed it back into his pocket. "But I bet it's a lot," said Evan. "I bet on a hot day we could actually make some money on a lemonade business." "Yeah," said Scott. "We'd be rich, and I could get an Xbox, the new one, with the dual controllers." "I'd get an iPod," said Evan. He'd been saving for one for over a year, but every time he'd put his money away, well, it just disappeared. Like the $10 Grandmama gave him for his birthday. She'd even written a card. "Here's a little something to help you get that music thing you want." But the money was gone. He treated Paul and Ryan to a slice of pizza at Townhouse. It had been fun, but the money wasn't there anymore. "That would be so great, to listen to music whenever I wanted," said Evan. I could tune out anybody." They sat in silence, feeling the heat suck away every bit of energy Evan had. Evan was hatching a plan. The heat wave was supposed to last for 5 more days. And if he and a friend, not Scott, set up a lemonade stand every day for 5 days, he definitely would have enough money to buy an iPod. He imagined himself wearing it as he walked into school, wearing it on the playground. "Hey, Megan." "Yeah, it's my iPod." "Sweet, huh?" Wearing it in class. While he droned out his teachers talking about fractions and percentages. Nah, but it would be cool. At least they would be the one thing that he totally had, and that wouldn't stink about going back to school. After 2 hours, they decided to call it quits. Sales had dropped off fast, and then they stopped altogether. "Hey, did you notice something?" asked Evan, stacking his chairs. What? Said Scott. When they started the stand, most of their business was coming from that direction, and he pointed down the street around the curve of the road. But after an hour, not one person walked past us from that direction. No one bought a cup. Not one. They all said, no thanks, and kept walking. What do you think? Don't know, said Scott. Boy, you're a real go-getter, said Evan. You know that? Scott socked him in the chest, but Evan defrayed and knocked Scott's cap off. So they're play fussing. While Scott was scrambling for his hat, Evan said, just hang here for a minute, okay? Sat down on the street. As soon as he rounded the curve, he knew why business had fallen off so badly. There was Jesse and Megan Mortier from his class. They were standing inside of a wooden booth, and their sign said it all. Lemonade, frosty, delicious, thirst-quenching. Wow, only 50 cents a cup. I know some girls that in my class that could make a beautiful sign like this one. By the look of it, their business was booming. Evan watched as Jesse accepted a fistful of dollars from a mother surrounded by kids. At that moment, Jesse looked up and saw him. Evan had a weird feeling, like he'd been caught cheating on a test. He wanted to run and hide somewhere, but instead, he froze. What would Jesse do? Evan couldn't believe it. She sneered, that's when you go, at him. She cocked her head to the side and gave him a little, I'm so much better than you smile. Then she waved the money in her hand at him. She waved it as if to say, look how much better we're selling lemonade. Bet you can't beat that. Evan turned on his heels and walked away. Behind him, he could hear Megan laughing at him, clear as a bell. Now, have you ever seen somebody talking and you thought that they were talking about you? How did it make you feel? How did you handle it? So chapter 4 tomorrow, we're going to find out how they handled it, and did really and truly Evan's perception of what was happening, was it really what was happening? So I want you to think about, how do you feel if you think someone's talking about you? And really and truly, when it comes down to it, are they really talking about you? Have a great day, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Bye.